Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your girl Nia. I'm back with another video, and in this video I'm going to show y'all how to turn these busted, rusty, crusty, quarantine eyebrows into some nice fleeky eyebrows, because as y'all can see, my eyebrows are tore up. Okay, so anyway, getting into the video. Starting off, I'm just patting my brows with some translucent powder. I do this to eliminate any of the excess oils that is on my skin, and we're just going to go ahead and buff that out with a nice fluffy brush. So now I'm just going to brush through my eyebrow hairs using my brow pencil, my spoolie on the end of my brow pencil, just to brush that powder through my eyebrow hairs, because you see how it's just sitting on my eyebrow hairs like that, looking all crazy. So we just got to go ahead and brush that on through. Now I'm going to go in with my eyebrow pencil. I use the L'Oreal brow pencil in the shade Brunette. And I always start from the middle. I don't start at the beginning. I always start from the middle, and I follow my natural brow hairs, my natural brow line, because I don't like to reshape my brows to look like something they not. I'm gonna shape them to how they naturally look. So I always follow my eyebrow hairline. Sometimes I just want my brows to look a bit fuller, so that's really why I fill in my brows. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just going in and filling that in. You want to follow your natural brow line, so make sure you do that, and your natural arch, because otherwise you're gonna like you got some Nike checks on your eyes, and you don't want that, sis. Okay, we do not want no Nike checks on our face. So once you're filling that brow in with your pencil, you want to make sure you just go ahead and brush that product through your brow. Otherwise, it's going to be too dark and too heavy. So as you fill it in, continue to brush the product through your brows. Okay, so now that we filled in the middle of our brows, we're going to move to the very front. And as you can see, I'm making brow strokes moving upwards with the pencil, because I like it to look like those natural brow hairs in the front of my brow. And then again, I'm just going ahead and brushing that product through. You do not want the front of your brow to be too dark. You want it to kind of fade, like from a light to dark. So from the beginning, you want it to be light, to the end to be darker. So you want it to fade and have that nice transition between in the brows. So I always have a light hand when I'm in the front of my brows. So here you're just going to see me do this, the exact same thing in the exact same steps that I explained on my other brow. Okay, now that we're done filling in the brows, we're going to go in with our concealer. Here I'm using the LA Pro concealer in the shade Fawn, and I'm going to use that under my brow bone to conceal my brows. So I always start from the middle. So here you're going to see me start from the middle right here. I'm just going to perfect my arch. You always want to follow your natural brow hairline because otherwise your brows are going to be too thick or too thin. So you want to follow your natural brow hairline just to give it that nice fullness so they can look nice and natural. So here, that's what I'm doing. And I always love to use an angle brush when I do so because the angle brush is nice and flat and it gives me that nice arch. You can use any brush as long as it's a nice flat brush so you can get a nice precise line when you're concealing your brows. So here I moved on to the front of my brows, and I always do the front of my brows last because I want to keep a light hand and make sure everything looks crisp and clean. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just making sure that my line that I'm doing to conceal my brows is nice and crisp and clean and precise. So you just want to make sure you're paying attention to that. I'm just going to do the same exact thing to the other brow. Alright, so moving on to above our brow, I'm using the Tarte Tape Shape Concealer in the shade Deep Sand. I always like to use a concealer above my brow that's closer to my skin complexion because it looks more natural and it blends perfectly into my skin. So here I'm using that Tarte Tape Shape Concealer just to clean up the top of my brow. And again, you want to follow your natural brow hairs, your natural brow shape to conceal your brows. And here I'm just making them look nice and crisp and clean. Now with the top of my brow, I always start from the beginning because I want to create a nice sharp clean line above, and then I always perfect the angle or the tail end of my brow. So here you're going to see me go over the tail end of my brows quite a few times because I'm trying to perfect that arch to where it looks nice and crisp and perfect. Another reason I like to use a concealer that is closer to my skin complexion above my brow is because normally, like even when you're doing a full face of makeup, when you blend out that concealer above your brow and it's too light and then you try to apply your foundation on top, it creates like this halo above your brow and it just looks so crazy to me. So I always like to use a concealer that is closer to my skin complexion or even the foundation that I'm using. That way it won't look crazy, you know, and you won't have that weird kind of lightness around your brows that's very noticeable. So just be mindful of that when you're concealing the top of your brows, and be mindful of what kind of concealer you use and the color of the concealer you use above your brow. It's okay to use a lighter concealer for your brow bones, so underneath your brows to conceal, because that part of your brow is naturally light anyway and you want that part of your brow to really pop. So just be mindful of the concealers that you use. And when I'm done concealing my brows, you're just going to see me go in with that brow pencil and create some hair-like strokes because I like for my brows to look nice and full. And now that we have our brows all nicely concealed, we're just going to go ahead and buff that concealer out. And I'm using the Real Techniques buffer brush to buff out the concealer around my brows. And this just makes everything just melt into the skin, which I love. As you can see here, while I'm buffing it out, it's melting really nicely into the skin. So after you conceal your brows, be sure to buff that concealer out into your skin really well. And you just want a nice fluffy brush to do so. You can even use a damp sponge to do that. But I prefer to use a buffer brush or a fluffy brush to buff out that concealer. Alright y'all, so that is pretty much it for this video of this brow tutorial for us all looking crusty and busted and rusty throughout this quarantine. But this is how you get some nice fleeky brows throughout this quarantine, sis. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please don't forget to share, like, comment, and subscribe. I love you guys. Bye.